Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Philly Sports Power Hour on this Football Friday. I missed my Power Hour crew. I really did. Taking 2 days off for the holiday messed me all up. I was just saying to my producer, Xander, not doing the Power Hour every day, it made me like, I didn't know what day it was. Was it Wednesday, Thursday? It was all confusing to me, so I am happy to be back for the Power Hour. No more days off. We're even going to come to you guys on Monday, New Year's Day, since it's the day after the Eagles game. But welcome into the Power Hour. We are live on the JAKIB Sports Network on YouTube. We are also live on TikTok. Good to see some of the TikTok crew checking in. Not sure how many people are going to tune in today on this Friday before the New Year's holiday, but I see Ringo Island in the house. One of the first people on the Keely Ringo train, my man Ringo Island. I see Bridget Tobin checking in as well. But if you guys are here, let's get a little roll call in the chat on this Football Friday. Not sure there are any other shows on JAKIB Sports today. This may be it with the holiday. So get your hour of Philadelphia sports while you can. But we have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, a big game for the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday against Jonathan Gannon and those Arizona Cardinals. But there's a lot to talk about around the NFL, especially with the NFC, because there's a lot of playoff implications this weekend that we need to talk about. And if you guys follow me on Instagram at Legal Hands to the Face, I did a video this week talking about how we're going to have to do something really nasty on Saturday night. And that's root for the Dallas Cowboys. And we'll get into that in a second. I see more people checking in. Philly 007, good to see you. Ringo Island is a Georgia Bulldogs fan, so he knows this team well. And Keely Ringo, obviously, another Georgia Bulldog. Well, let's talk a little before we get into our Football Friday and before we take a look around the NFL. You know I have to talk about our Philadelphia Flyers because those Fly guys, after the 5-day mandatory break that the NHL implements during the holidays, Fly guys bounced back with a big win last night, 4-1 in Vancouver. And the Vancouver Canucks are a good team, 23-10-3 on the season. But guess what, guys? It is no longer an exaggeration to say the Philadelphia Flyers are a good football team because it's Football Friday. They are a good hockey team. This is no longer a small sample size now. I was hesitant to start saying this team was a good team because you thought going into this season that it was going to be a rough year. But we now are over a third of the way through, and there's a good hockey team in South Philadelphia again. So turn your attention, if you're hockey fans, turn your attention to this Flyers team because they're now 19-11-4, second best team in the Metropolitan Division. They're 8-1-3 in their last 12. And check this, since November 10th, going on almost 2 months now, they have a .738 winning percentage, 14-4-3, which is the best in the NHL. So your Philadelphia Flyers are playing the best hockey in the entire National Hockey League right now. And I see Ringo Island saying, let me hear you sing The Orange and the Black. You know, they rolled that song out probably 20 years ago now, maybe even longer. I was never a big fan of it. Never a big fan. But Philly 007 saying the Flyers are supposed to be rebuilding. Yes, they are. That's what's so shocking right now, is they thought they were going to go into this season. They thought they were going to be rebuilding. But this team has good chemistry, good coaching, playing hard. So there was a stat put out today. Right now, your Philadelphia Flyers have a 77.7% chance of making the playoffs. That's basically 78% chance of making the playoffs. How sweet would it be to see NHL playoffs back in South Philadelphia come this summer? Man, I'm rooting for it. Good morning, Chuck Hutton. See you checking in as well. And you look at last night, the Flyers had their 8th shorthanded goal of the season. They now have 5 wins over top 10 NHL teams. Luckily, Konechny and their goalie, Sam Ersson, left the game, but they seem to be okay. Dehydration seems to be what the issue was. I know Konechny was battling an illness, so nothing big there. But Ersson has stepped in Carter Hart's absence and played really well in net for the Fly Guys. So they're back in action tonight. They're on the West Coast, so they played Vancouver last night. They got the Seattle Kraken tonight at 10 o'clock. So if you're bored laying in bed, turn on the Fly Guys because they're playing some good hockey. But that'll be it. I know not everyone is hockey fans, so I always talk only for a few minutes on our Flyers. I'm working on bringing in some hockey guests every once in a while because especially when the Eagles season is over, even though NFL news is 365 days a year, it'd be nice to get a little hockey talk on the Power Hour. So be on the lookout for that. I'll keep you guys updated when we're going to have some hockey guests coming on the show. But let's take a look at our Football Friday because there is a big game on Sunday for this Philadelphia Eagles team. Oh, and Solvane, you are correct. Before we move on to hockey, I do have to mention our NBA team, the 76ers, because they are playing well. They just picked up their first win without Joel Embiid in Orlando against the Magic. So we have 2 teams other than the Philadelphia Eagles who are playing really good. They have a great coach, Nick Nurse, John Tortorella, very similar when you look at these teams. Unlike the Sixers, the Flyers don't have that one superstar like the Sixers have with Joel Embiid, but 2 teams that are playing really good with great coaching, playing hard, good chemistry. So that's what you love to see as Philadelphia fans. And I see my man Wine Niners Wine checking in. You're a little late today, Wine Niners Wine. We already were talking about our Flyers. I know you always are there to talk some Flyers. But let's jump over. It is our Football Friday, so we'll jump over to some football talk. And before we get into the Eagles game, and I want to go over everything, a lot of storylines around this Eagles-Cardinals game on Sunday. I want to talk about some other NFL games because a lot happening, a lot of playoff implications this weekend. Some have big effects and big impact on our Philadelphia Eagles. But first, let's talk about Thursday night football last night. And local dude, Joe Flacco. Are you kidding me with what Flacco is doing in Cleveland? And I say local kid, if you guys didn't know, he's from Audubon, New Jersey. Went to Audubon High School. But Joe Flacco literally comes back off of his couch to lead the Cleveland Browns into the playoffs. Flacco beats the New York Jets last night 37-20. Really, most damage was done in the first half. I think they only scored 3 points in the second half. But Flacco throws for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Insane. And I love Flacco, local guy. I'm rooting for him. But, man, what he did last week between him and Amari Cooper knocked me out of my fantasy football. I was in the semifinals of the fantasy football season. I had a great team all year. And I should have dominated in that game. And the guy I played picked up Joe Flacco and had Amari Cooper. And it just so happens that in the semifinals, they set the Cleveland Browns record for receiving yards. And I had a great week, but Flacco and Amari Cooper knocked me out of my fantasy football season. I had such a good damn team, too, with Jalen Hurts and Christian McCaffrey. And it's one of those auction leagues. So that's a lot of fun because you have to pick your team. It's not like players just fall to you in the draft. Every player on your team, you went out and you bought with the $100 you have to build your team. So if you've never done an auction league, it's a lot of fun. But I'm done now. I'm out because of Joe Flacco. But I'm rooting for Flacco, man. I'm rooting for him. Great story in Cleveland. And I'll tell you what, the job that Kevin Stefanski is doing in Cleveland, he is now the favorite to be coach of the year. And how could he not be coach of the year? The Cleveland Browns are the first NFL team ever to have 4 quarterbacks start multiple games and still go to the playoffs. That is incredible. When you look at what other teams do, once their starting quarterback goes down, most teams are done. Look at the New York Jets. The New York Jets have a great defense. They had Super Bowl hopes going into the season with their starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. As soon as he goes down, they were done. And if you're a New York Jets fan, you could have had Joe Flacco. He was on your damn team, and you released him. Think about the position the New York Jets may be in right now if they had Joe Flacco instead of rolling out Zach Wilson week after week after week. So I'm rooting for Flacco. But Kevin Stefanski, what a job he's doing. He's now the favorite for coach of the year. He should be the coach of the year. And the Browns still have an outside chance, not likely, but an outside chance to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. But they'd have to catch the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens would probably have to lose both, I think. I think the Ravens have to lose both of their remaining games because they're 12-3. Browns are 11-5. But I think if the Browns win their last game of the season and the Ravens were to drop the next 2, the Cleveland Browns would be the number 1 seed. Not likely. Ravens have a tough game this weekend. We'll talk about it in a second against Miami. But what a story. And if I'm in the AFC, I do not want to face that Cleveland Browns team. They have a great defense. A great defense. And now you add Joe Flacco to that offense, putting up a lot of points. They have some playmakers on that side of the ball with Amari Cooper, Njoku, their tight end. Obviously, Ford, their running back. You saw him make some plays last night. Not a team you want to see in the playoffs, that's for sure. But let's talk about when we're looking around the NFL. We need to talk about tomorrow night. Because there's only one game on Saturday, and this one has huge implications for the NFC playoff race, especially for our Philadelphia Eagles. And I know I'm going to get some heat for this in the chat, and I know not everyone's going to be able to do it. I did an Instagram video about this. I had a lot of people saying, no, never. But hear me out here, guys. We need to root for the Dallas Cowboys on Saturday night. I know it's not something that any of us ever want to do. Root for the Cowboys. But the Philadelphia Eagles need the Detroit Lions to lose another game this season. And if we look ahead at Week 18, the Detroit Lions play the Minnesota Vikings. And that game is in Detroit. And the Vikings are going to be starting a rookie quarterback in Jaron Hall. He's getting his first start this weekend. So the chances that the Detroit Lions lose the last game of the season to the Minnesota Vikings with a rookie quarterback in Detroit is slim. So this is the best chance for the Detroit Lions to lose a game in Dallas. We know how good Dallas has been at home. And I see Chuck Hutton saying he's nauseous just thinking about rooting for Dallas. Billy Ray is he's going to be feeling dirty rooting for Dallas. I got Moody West telling me to just log off on TikTok talking about rooting for Dallas. Ringo Island saying he's not doing it. The Eagles should have handled their own business. I'm not rooting for Dallas because Bradbury got toasted against Seattle. And Barbara Carroll says that tells me Bill's not confident in the Eagles winning road playoff games. Well, let me ask you, Barb. Would you rather the Eagles have home playoff games or road playoff games? Because I certainly don't want to be a 5 seed. But even if the Philadelphia Eagles win the next 2, and they win out, they beat the Cardinals as they should on Sunday, and we'll talk about that matchup in the next segment. They beat the Giants the last game of the season, and the Philadelphia Eagles win the NFC East. If the Detroit Lions win out, they get the number 2 seed. The Philadelphia Eagles would be a 3 seed. So you would open up at home, but then most likely you're going on the road the next week to Detroit. I think the Philadelphia Eagles could beat the Lions in Detroit, but I'd much rather that game be in Philadelphia. And the Eagles also still have an outside shot of getting the 1 seed in the NFC. And I definitely want that bye. I definitely want the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the NFC Championship game if they get there. No doubt about it. And I see Barbara Carroll saying good teams, championship teams, win on the road. It's been done before. Definitely been done before. But you have to root for the easiest path. And the easiest path to a Super Bowl is through Lincoln Financial Field. I don't want the Eagles to have to go on the road to Detroit and then go on the road to San Francisco. And I really want that number 1 seed. And let's talk about that. As we're talking about the number 1 seed, and I see Billy Ray going right where I'm going, the San Francisco 49ers need to lose 1 more game. So here's how the Philadelphia Eagles get the 1 seed. First off, and most important, the Eagles need to take care of business. Eagles need to beat the Cardinals on Sunday. They need to beat the Giants next week. If they do that, they win the NFC East. It doesn't matter what the Cowboys do the rest of the way. Eagles are the NFC East champs. That ensures they are either a 3 seed, a 2 seed, or a 1 seed. But how do the Eagles get the 1 seed? Here's how. We need the Detroit Lions to lose 1 more game, and I'll talk about that tiebreaker in a second. But they also need the San Francisco 49ers to lose 1 more game. The Niners aren't losing this weekend. They're on the road in Washington. Washington stinks and has nothing to play for. And you know the 49ers are going to bounce back big after getting dominated by the Ravens last week. But the last game of the year is the game to watch. The last game of the year, the San Francisco 49ers host the Los Angeles Rams. A division opponent, a Rams team that is fighting for a playoff spot. They're currently in the 6th seed in the NFC. And that Rams team is playing really, really good football right now. You look at the Rams, the last 6 games, they've won 5 out of 6. And the only game they lost was an overtime loss to the Baltimore Ravens, who just whooped on the San Francisco 49ers. So there is a really good possibility that this 49ers team could lose to the Los Angeles Rams. And if that happens, and the Eagles simply take care of their own business, they would now be in contention for the number 1 seed. But they would lose the tiebreaker to the Lions if the Lions win out. And I did a video on my Instagram, and I have all types of people commenting that I'm wrong that the Lions hold the tiebreaker. I am 1,000% correct that the Lions would hold the tiebreaker. If you look at the standings right now, yes, as of today, the Philadelphia Eagles have the tiebreaker over the Detroit Lions. But if both teams win out, the Lions have the tiebreaker, and here's why. When you look at conference tiebreakers, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions haven't played each other this season. So there is no head-to-head tiebreaker. The next one is conference record, not division record. I have a lot of people commenting to me on Instagram, the Eagles would have a better division record. It doesn't matter. When you're talking conference tiebreakers, your division record doesn't matter. It's conference record that matters. And both teams would finish 9-3 in the NFC. So then what is the third tiebreaker? The third tiebreaker is record against common opponents. And that, unfortunately, is where the Detroit Lions would have the tiebreaker. Because the Philadelphia Eagles are 4-2 against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Minnesota Vikings, the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Seattle Seahawks. They're 4-2. If the Detroit Lions win out, beating the Cowboys on Saturday night, beating the Vikings the last game of the season, their record against those common opponents would be 5-1. So the Detroit Lions would hold the tiebreaker over the Philadelphia Eagles. So even if the Philadelphia Eagles win out, if the Detroit Lions also win out, the Eagles cannot leapfrog the Detroit Lions. That is why, as hard as it's going to be, Philly, I get it. We have to root for the Dallas Cowboys to win on Saturday night. And I see Mobb Deep saying he will never root for Dallas, that the Eagles put themselves in this position with losses to teams like the Jets and the Seahawks. I agree. There's no denying that the Philadelphia Eagles put themselves in this position. The sad reality is they are one Drew Lock 92-yard drive away from being in the driver's seat right now for the number 1 seed. But unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves. Yes, the Eagles put themselves in this position. The Eagles should have never lost that game to the Seattle Seahawks. But they did. And as we sit here right now, if the goal is to get back to a Super Bowl, which I know it is for everyone here watching this show, the best chance of that happening is if the Philadelphia Eagles get the number 1 seed, get a first-round bye, and are able to host every NFC playoff game. That is the best chance. Not saying that it's not possible. I have people in the chat saying it's possible to go on the road. Of course it is. But the best path would be through Lincoln Financial Field. And the only way that happens is if the Detroit Lions lose one more football game. So, are we dem boys on Saturday night? Here we go. We rooting for Dak Prescott? Here we go. Because I am. I'm rooting for those boys on Saturday night. Because them winning that game does absolutely nothing for the Dallas Cowboys. If the Philadelphia Eagles take care of their own business, they still win the NFC East. So who gives a crap if the Cowboys win at home? Doesn't bother me. Let them win at home. Because you know what? They're going to have to go on the road in the playoffs. And the Dallas Cowboys are a different team on the road. So let them boys get all excited after beating the Detroit Lions on Saturday night, because all it does is help the Philadelphia Eagles. And I see Flybirds 97 on TikTok saying that statistically the number 1 seed doesn't actually make it to the Super Bowl. It's still the easiest path. I get it that the number 1 seed doesn't always make it, but it's still the easiest path for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And let's go one step further here. The San Francisco 49ers don't lose any more games. So the 49ers beat the Washington Commanders on Sunday. They then beat the Los Angeles Rams the last game of the season. Well, if that happens and the Detroit Lions win, the Philadelphia Eagles are a 3 seed. So how do we feel about the Eagles being a 3 seed? So now not only are you not getting that first round bye, Now you're not hosting the NFC Championship game. You're most likely not hosting the divisional round either. I don't want back-to-back road games to get back to the Super Bowl. And here on YouTube, Bill Ray makes a good point. We need Seattle to win this week. Otherwise, the Rams clinch this week. So if the Rams were to clinch the playoffs this week, and their last game of the season didn't mean anything, yes, they may rest players in that game. What would be interesting is if the Rams are resting players, if they rested Matt Stafford, does Carson Wentz get the start in L.A.? Would be interesting. And I see Ken Andrew on TikTok saying that Dallas would beat the Eagles at home or on the road. So I think we got a Cowboys troll in the TikTok chat. But the Dallas Cowboys, and you can't deny this, whether you're a Cowboys fan, an Eagles fan, or any other NFL team, the Cowboys are a completely different team on the road than they are at home. So if the Dallas Cowboys have to start the playoffs in the wild card round on the road, they would most likely have to play the NFC South winner. They could win that game against the Bucs, most likely. But then they'd have to go on the road to probably face the San Francisco 49ers in Santa Clara. If the Eagles are the 1 seed, the Cowboys would probably have to come to Philadelphia. They're not the same team on the road. And I see some people asking about Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, and I do want to get into that when we get back. Because when we get back, we need to talk about, we're worried about other teams. I'm talking about other teams in seeding. But none of that's going to matter if this Philadelphia Eagles team doesn't right the ship and doesn't play a lot better than they've been playing the last couple of weeks. And they have a great opportunity in front of them, the next 2 games, to put all of this together for 4 quarters, offensively and defensively, so that we can get that mojo right heading into the playoffs, whether the Eagles are the 1, the 2, the 3. Take care of business. Let's right this ship. When we get back, guys, I'm going to jump into the Eagles-Cardinals matchups. I'll give you guys my prediction. I'll get your some predictions as well. Don't go anywhere, guys. This is the Philly Sports Power Hour. We'll be right back.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo. Here we go. I'm rooting for them boys on Saturday night. I know that pisses some people off, but I'm rooting for them boys. And I know people in the chat are saying they're not going to root for the Cowboys because the Eagles still need to win their last 2 games to get the NFC East, and there's no guarantees. But here's my thoughts on that argument. If the Eagles don't win the next 2 games, whatever their seed isn't going to matter. Because if they can't beat the Arizona Cardinals and the New York Giants, then this team isn't going anywhere in the playoffs. So I'm rooting for the Cowboys. And I've had some people rationalize it. If this makes it a little bit easier for you, don't root for the Cowboys. Just root for the Lions to lose. How about that? So we're not going to root for the Cowboys to win. We're just going to root for the Lions to lose. And Wine Niners Wine trying to rationalize it in his brain, saying, you aren't rooting for the Cowboys, you are rooting for the Eagles' best playoff seeding. So we need it. We need it. And Ringo Island's right. It is a week-by-week league. The Eagles couldn't even beat the New York Jets. That is true. But at this point in the season, you need to be playing your best football headed into the playoffs. And we still have not seen this Philadelphia Eagles team best football. Or we have. And if that's the case, if we have seen the best football from this Philadelphia Eagles team, and this is just who they are, then seeding isn't going to matter. Because they're not going anywhere. But I'm trying to be positive here. And I did a tweet the other day about this. I have been saying for weeks that I don't think this Philadelphia Eagles team has the personnel on the defensive side of the football to make it back to a Super Bowl. And I said that before the San Francisco 49ers dominated them, before the Cowboys dominated them. But here's where I'm finding some positivity. Here's where I'm saying to myself, maybe they do have the personnel. Because when I made those comments, that was before we saw Keely Ringo balling out. That was before we knew Avonte Maddox is probably coming back. That was before we saw Shaq Leonard look like the Shaq Leonard of old against the New York Giants. Now, I'm not saying that I expect all 3 of those things to continue, that Avonte Maddox is going to come back after not playing for weeks and be the same guy. That rookie Keely Ringo is going to keep playing at the level he's playing. That Shaq Leonard is going to look like the all-pro he was in Indianapolis. But there's hope that all 3 of those things could happen. So you look at this Philadelphia Eagles defense now. And trust me, guys, I'm not a cheerleader for this team. You have been getting mad at me for not being overly positive the last few weeks about an 11-4 football team. But when I take a step back and I look at this defense, there is hope with guys like Keely Ringo, Shaq Leonard, Avonte Maddox, And then you got Zach Cunningham maybe coming back. Darius Slay coming back. Nick Morrow coming back. If all of those things happen, and Keeley and Shaq Leonard can play good football down the stretch and into the playoffs, this team has a shot. This team has a real shot. And that's why I'm talking about the seeding. Because we need that NFC Championship game in Philadelphia. Doesn't mean the Eagles can't win on the road in San Francisco or Santa Clara or wherever the hell they play. But it certainly would be a lot better in Philly. And no one can disagree with that. And I see Crawley X26 on the YouTube chat saying there is zero chance Ringo gets the start over Bradbury. Put it to rest. You know, Crawley, I know why you say that, because James Bradbury's making a lot of money on this team. But if you take a step back and you just look at the season that James Bradbury has had, when Darius Slay comes back, it would be criminal for this coaching staff, and even Howie Roseman, if he's the one calling the shots, to say, we're not going to play our best players. That even though Keely Ringo is balling out and James Bradbury is not playing his best football, we're going to roll with JB because he's making more money. That would be criminal. And I have faith that this coaching staff and Matt Patricia as the defensive coordinator will roll with the best players. And Crowley's saying they haven't shown me once that they would do something like that. But have we really ever seen a rookie outplay a veteran the way Keely Ringo has outplayed James Bradbury in the last 2 weeks? Now, listen, I have a lot of high hopes for Keely Ringo. I know Ringo Island in the chat has high hopes for him as well. But we do have to take what he's done and temper it a little bit and look at who he did it against. He did it against the Seattle Seahawks and Drew Lock. He did it against the New York Giants and Tommy Cutlets and Tyrod Taylor. So let's see how he does against Kyler Murray, who I still don't think is an upper echelon quarterback in this league. Never been a fan of Kyler Murray, but he's better than Drew Lock and Tommy Cutlets. But I still have high hopes for Ringo, and I think he's earned it. If Nick Sirianni, who constantly preaches competition, is going to give the job to someone simply because they make more money, then everything Nick Sirianni says is BS. Because if he truly feels that competition is important, then you have to go with the guy that's playing better than the veteran. So I have confidence they're going to roll with Keely. And what I'd love to see is Darius Slay comes back. Avonte Maddox comes back. And now you have a secondary that includes Keely Ringo and Darius Slay on the outside. Avonte Maddox and Bradley Roby on the inside. And maybe work JB inside a little bit. We saw him do it earlier in the season. Maybe let him work a little bit inside. But you have Avonte Maddox, who, when healthy, is one of the best nickel corners in the NFL. The problem is he just hasn't been very healthy. And now at safety, you have Reed Blankenship, Kevin Byard, and Sidney Brown. And I really liked what the Eagles defense has done the last couple of weeks with that big nickel package where you have Sidney Brown in the game and you have a 3-safety look. I like that a lot. But if you have Shaq Leonard who can contribute and you're getting Zach Cunningham back, this defense may have the personnel to go back to a Super Bowl. That's been an area I've been preaching for weeks I thought they lacked. But you add these guys to the mix, maybe they have enough to get back to a Super Bowl. But before we talk a little bit about this Eagles team a little more, there's some other good games on Sunday. So we talked about the Cowboys and the Lions on Saturday night. But there's 3 games on Sunday other than the Eagles that I think are some really good games. You got the Miami Dolphins at the Baltimore Ravens. Unfortunately, the same time the Eagles game's on, so we're not going to be able to watch that game. But that's a good one. You got the 11-4 Dolphins going up against the 12-3 Ravens, both fighting for that number 1 seed in the AFC. Really interested to see how that Baltimore Ravens defense, who plays an extremely physical brand of football, does against the Miami Dolphins offense that's all about speed. I think the Ravens win that game. They're 3.5-point favorites, but I think you're going to see a Ravens defense out physical that Dolphins offense. And that game is in Baltimore. And then at 4:25, there's another interesting game. You got the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. And the reason I want to see that game is I want to see how this Chiefs team responds to some adversity, because they haven't looked good the last few weeks. They just lost to the the Las Vegas Raiders, and doing some uncharacteristic things, turnovers on offense. They've now lost, after losing to the Eagles, they bounced back and beat the Raiders. They then lost 2 straight. Then they beat the Patriots, and now they lost to the Raiders. So I'm just curious to see what that Chiefs team does in the face of some adversity here, and if they can right the ship. And then at 8:20, another good game in the NFC that has some playoff implications. You got the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are a 1-point favorite, basically a pick'em game. And the reason that's interesting, not only for NFC playoff implications, the Vikings are rolling out their rookie quarterback, Jaron Hall. So let's see how he plays. This is coming on the heels of Nick Mullins throwing for over 400 yards, but unfortunately, I think he also threw 4 interceptions in that game. So that's another game to look out for, is the Packers and the Vikings, the 8:20 game. So let's talk a little bit about this Eagles team, because one of the questions that keeps getting asked, and I keep seeing it all over social media, all over sports talk, is this Philadelphia Eagles team having fun? They're 11-4. But they don't look like they're having fun. They don't look like they're enjoying it when they win. And the question keeps getting asked, are they having fun? They win on Sunday. A.J. Brown doesn't talk to the media. Well, I'm going to answer it for you right now. This Philadelphia Eagles team isn't having any fun. And the reason they're not having any fun is because this is the effect of the Super Bowl hangover. I've talked about it in the past. I'm not making an excuse for this team. I'm simply stating reality. This is why it is so hard to go back to a Super Bowl after losing the big game, because winning isn't fun. Simply winning isn't fun. Being 11-4 isn't what this team set out to be. You have all that pressure of trying to go back to a Super Bowl. It doesn't matter if you win the division. It doesn't matter if you make the playoffs. The only thing that matters after losing a Super Bowl is trying to get back. That's why it doesn't look like this team is having any fun, because this isn't their goal. And when they're not playing their best football, the only thing you're looking at is, are they good enough to go back to a Super Bowl? And it's not just the fans looking at it through that lens. They're looking at it through that lens. That's why it's hard for this team to enjoy being 11-4, because that's not what their ultimate goal was. Do you think Jason Kelce decided to come back this season just to make the playoffs? Do you think Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox came back to the Eagles this season just to make the playoffs? No. Everything is about getting back to that Super Bowl. And that's why it doesn't look like this team is having any fun. And I've been really hard on Nick Sirianni on some of the decisions that he has made. But I'm going to give him a little bit of credit right now. And I think this team has made some bad decisions this season on offense. I think that changing defensive coordinators was a scapegoat when the real problems may be on the offensive side of the football when it comes to coaching. I think defense is more personnel related. But I'm going to give him some credit here, because we know how difficult it is to take a team who lost the Super Bowl and try to get back. There's a reason why we talked about the Super Bowl hangover all offseason. But one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough, and this is relevant with the Arizona Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon coming to town, is that there are only 2 Super Bowl teams ever who have lost both coordinators after going to a Super Bowl. You got to go back to the 2004 New England Patriots and the 1994 San Francisco 49ers. Those 2 teams made it to a Super Bowl, lost both coordinators. In 1995, the 49ers went 11-5, lost in the divisional round. The 2005 Patriots went 10-6, lost in the divisional round. Sirianni is trying to do something that's never been done. No team has gone to a Super Bowl, lost both coordinators, and went back to the Super Bowl the next season. And you throw that on top of the fact that only 3 teams ever have lost a Super Bowl and gone back to win it. And we talked about this last week on the show. You're talking about Tom Landry and the 1971 Cowboys, Don Shula and the perfect 1972 Miami Dolphins, and Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and the 2018 New England Patriots. So I've been hard on Sirianni as well, and a lot of it is deserved. I'm not making excuses for him. But I also think we need to take a step back and give this guy a little bit more credit than we have, that what he's trying to navigate has never been done. These 3 teams that lost the Super Bowl and went back to win it the next year didn't lose both coordinators before the season. And there's only 8 teams that have ever even gone back to a Super Bowl. So when we ask the question, is this Philadelphia Eagles team having any fun, even though they're 11-4? No, they're not. Because the pressure is all about getting back to a Super Bowl. That's what we want as fans. That's what they want as players. That's what the Eagles organization wants. So every single win, every single play, every single game is looked at through the lens of, are they good enough to get back? Are they good enough to get back? That's why it doesn't look like this team is having any fun. It's the pressure of the Super Bowl hangover that is real. It can't be overstated how tough it is. And I'm not making excuses. I don't want you guys to think I'm making excuses. I still think the coaching on offense needs to be better. The play calling on offense needs to be better. I don't like that Howie Roseman ignored positions on the defensive side of the football. So I'm not making excuses. But when we take a step back and look at what this Eagles team and organization is trying to do, which is get back to a Super Bowl after losing it, and after losing both coordinators, this is really freaking hard, guys. So that's it. Just wanted to give Sirianni a little bit of credit. And you look at, I gave you the 3 coaches, Landry, Shula, and Belichick, who were able to go back and win a Super Bowl after losing. You look at the other teams who were able to even get back to a Super Bowl. You're looking at the 73 Minnesota Vikings, head coach Bud Grant, the 1986 Denver Broncos, head coach Dan Reeves, and then 3 of the teams were the same damn team. The 90, 91, and 92 Buffalo Bills with Marv Levy. I see Richie MC saying, here we go, Bill making excuses again. Come on, guys. You know I haven't been overly positive the last few weeks. I've had people getting mad at me, about not being overly positive. And I had to tell some of you guys, look, I don't want to be one of those parents who watches their kid play sports, who thinks they're better than they are, who can't take any criticism. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to give you guys reality and tell you what I see. And even though this team's 11-4, there are some major issues with this team. We talked about the personnel on defense. Well, that may be corrected if we can get some of these guys back. if we can get Avonte Maddox back, Zach Cunningham comes back, Darius Slay comes back, if Shaq Leonard can play with that chip on his shoulder that we saw against the New York Giants and be some semblance of what he was as an all-pro linebacker in Indianapolis. And then you look at the offensive side of the football. If this team can just figure out what we all can see, that their identity should be a team that establishes the run and then throws the ball off of the run, they could be really successful. Really successful. The philosophy of the explosive play, we've talked about it before on this show, is killing this team. Them thinking and believing that they have to throw the ball down the field to be successful is simply not reality. They can establish the run with that offensive line, with the playmakers they have in the backfield, and then throw the ball off of the run, and you can get explosive plays without throwing the ball down the field. The yards after catch can result in explosive plays. And that's something that has been lacking this season. If you follow me, you know we've talked about this. I did a video on this last week. You look at 2022. They were a top 5 team in the NFL in yards after catch. They averaged 5.8 yards after catch per reception. Before the Giants game, that dropped down to 4.8, which put them at 25th in the NFL. But what happened in that Giants game? Once they started to establish the run, they were then able to throw off of the run, and they did a great job with Yak in that game. Not by throwing the ball deep down the field. Jalen Hurts only had one throw over 20 yards in the air, and he still put up over 300 yards. How? Because they had over 180 yards after catch. That should be the identity of this team. You know who does it better than anybody? The San Francisco 49ers. Lead the league. 6.8 yards after catch is their average. You can create explosive plays in this league without throwing the ball down the field. So I still have some hope for this team with the personnel that I mentioned that are coming back on defense. With the personnel they have on offense, if they can simply find their identity, especially over the next 2 games, and go into the playoffs, establishing the run, going on these methodical drives, creating plays in the passing game off of the run, there's a shot that this team can do something that only 8 teams have ever done in NFL history, and that's go back to a Super Bowl after losing it. But it starts on Sunday, and let's take a look at Jonathan Gannon, because by now all of you guys know the story. Jonathan Gannon, before the NFC Championship game, said that he's staying in Philadelphia, that we are stuck with him. The Eagles thought he was coming back, and because of it, they let their top choice to replace Gannon if he was to leave, Vic Fangio, sign with the Dolphins, because everyone thought Gannon was coming back. But what nobody knew was that the Arizona Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon were talking in violation of the NFL rules. And Gannon takes the head coaching job with Arizona. Eagles miss out on Vic Fangio. They have to turn to Sean Desai. And that just shows what happened. Because Sean Desai is no longer the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Jonathan Gannon screwed the Philadelphia Eagles. And I expect him to get a nice, warm welcome when he comes into Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday. But let's take a look at how that Arizona Cardinals team is doing this season. They're 3-12. Not a very good football team. But you can't overlook this game. And I'm going to talk about some things that I'm concerned about from our defensive perspective. But let's take a look at that Jonathan Gannon defense. So as you would expect from a Jonathan Gannon defense, they're a lot better against the pass than they are against the run. If you remember the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022, they had the number 1 passing defense in the entire NFL. And they were number 16 against the run. A similar thing is going on in Arizona. They're number 12 in the NFL against the pass, and they are the worst run defense in the entire NFL. Now, I'm going to say that one more time. The Arizona Cardinals are the worst run defense in the entire NFL. Now, common sense would tell you, if you're going up against the 32nd out of 32 NFL teams against the run, what should the Philadelphia Eagles do on Sunday? If you're here in the chat, let me hear you say it. Something that 70,000 fans were cheering on Christmas Day at the Link. And I see on TikTok, run the damn ball. You are going up against the worst run defense in the entire league. The Philadelphia Eagles should put up over 200 damn yards on the ground on New Year's Eve. And everybody's saying it in the chat. Richie MC saying throw the ball. Unfortunately, Richie MC, that sometimes is what this coaching staff does. They outthink themselves. Where everyone thinks we're going to run, so let's throw it. So you got the worst run defense in the league. I really want to see this team establish the run. And when we talk about figuring out what their identity is, they can get a great start on Sunday against a really bad run defense. But let's flip over to the other side of the football, because here's my one concern with this game on Sunday. The Arizona Cardinals on offense don't do a lot of things well. But the one thing they do very well is run the ball. You look at this Arizona Cardinals offense, they are in the top 10 in rushing. And you look at the last 6 games, because Kyler Murray's only played in 6 games. And you look at the last 6 games, the Arizona Cardinals are averaging over 132 rushing yards a game. They put up 234 yards on the ground against the San Francisco 49ers defense. 234. And you look at this Eagles defense, they're still top 10 against the run, but that's mainly because what they did the first 9 games of the season. The first 9 games of the year, the Philadelphia Eagles defense only allowed one team to rush for over 100 yards. One. The last 6 games, every single opponent has ran for over 100 yards. They're giving up an average of 138.5 in the last 6. So that's my one concern going into this game. The Eagles' run defense has not been good the last 6 weeks. The Arizona Cardinals' rushing offense has been really good the last 6 weeks. And they have a guy in the backfield named James Conner who runs really hard. And one of the issues we've seen with this defense in the past has been tackling. So they better be ready on Sunday to wrap their arms and bring James Conner to the ground. You cannot allow this guy to break tackles. And on top of it all, you have a quarterback in Kyler Murray, who I don't think is very good, but can certainly make plays with his feet. So if I'm Matt Patricia, and I do expect to see a lot of this on Sunday, I think you're going to see a lot of 5-man fronts from this Eagles defense. That gives them the best chance of being able to stop the run. Now, what that does when you come out in a 5-man front is it does expose you in the passing game because you have one less player in the back. No longer do you have a back 7, you have a back 6. But I think you take away the run from this Arizona Cardinals offense, and I'll deal with the pass. They're only 29th in the league in passing. So let me give you guys my prediction because the Power Hour always flies by, and we're coming up to the end of our hour here. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to take care of business on Sunday. I think you're going to see a team who's figured out their identity. And maybe this is wishful thinking, but I think you're going to see the Philadelphia Eagles establish the run early and often against the worst rush defense in the league. And I think you're going to see the Eagles defense shut down the run. I think you're going to see the Eagles defense make some plays. And I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning this game easily. 31-17 Philadelphia Eagles. And Travis Yoder in the chat has the exact same prediction. Let me see some of your predictions in the chat. Richie MC, 30-10 Eagles. Joe Eagle, come on, man. Going with the Cardinals. What do you guys got on TikTok? Let's see some predictions on TikTok. Wine Niners Wine, 102-0, the Birds. The problem, though, Wine Niners Wine, is you really can't say the Birds because the Cardinals call themselves the Bird Gang as well. But I know you mean the Eagles. I know you mean the Eagles. But, guys, we're running out of time. Like we end every Philly Sports Power Hour with a little Today in Sports history. This one was interesting. December 29th, 1940. The Chicago Bears won the NFL All-Star Game. Well, how the hell did the Chicago Bears win an All-Star Game? Well, from 1939 to 1942, the NFL All-Star Game, what it used to be called, used to put the NFL champion up against an all-star team of other NFL players. How cool would that be? So the Chicago Bears had just won the championship in 1940. They beat the Washington Redskins 73-0. They then went and played an all-star game the next week against NFL All-Stars, and the Chicago Bears beat them 28-14 on December 29th, 1940. That only lasted from 1939 to 1942. But you want to make the Pro Bowl cool? Have the Super Bowl winner go up against NFL Pro Bowlers and make the game matter. I think that'd be fun to watch. Never is going to happen, but probably was fun to watch. But, guys, I appreciate you all. I see you all in the chat giving me your predictions. Let's hope we are right. I will be back here on Monday, New Year's Day, for the Philly Sports Power Hour postgame. And be sure to check out on Sunday, New Year's Eve, all of the JAKIB Sports Eagles game day shows. We'll have the pregame show. We'll do the halftime show. You'll get the postgame show. You'll get me, Seth Joyner, Mark Farzetta, Mike Missinelli, John McMullen, Kayla Santiago. So make sure if you're not already subscribed to JAKIB Sports on YouTube, be sure to check it out. You guys here on TikTok, if you want to see the pregame show, the halftime show, the postgame show with me, Seth Joyner, Mikey Miss, Mark Farzetta, head on over to YouTube and make sure you are subscribed to the JAKIB Sports Network. That's JAKIB. Guys, we ran a little over today, which is okay because there's no other shows on JAKIB today, just the Philly Sports Power Hour. But I appreciate all of you guys. I missed the hell out of you. I really did. I'll see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend. Have a great New Year's Eve. Be safe, please. No drinking and driving. And let's root for those Eagles. And I hate to say it, but one more time, here we go. Root for those Cowboys on Saturday night. As always, guys, go Birds.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.